Welcome back to Football Daily, lovely to have you, and today we have two people on set. Joe.
Howdy.
Internal. Patrick, also internal.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so very much we're rotating some of the squad this week.
Yeah.
Full rotation.
Yeah.
Rotation.
Don't worry, there'll be different people next week. On the show today, Mourinho, Neymar, I want to say Moyes.
If you stick around, we'll get some fantastic David Moyes memories from Joe.
I think so.
And a manager of a similar ilk, Jurgen Klopp. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit about Harry Kane.
His managerial soulmate.
Yeah, exactly. Did you hear Pardew at the weekend?
Oh,
Pardew went, well, two managers, very similar managers. And I was like, in a way, yeah.
Does he feel the same?
In that you're both managers and you're very similar, all right?
Stops there.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, down to subject number one,
Yes.
Neymar. And
Yes.
he is recently living up to the hype. Most people believing that if you remove Messi from a team, everyone else gets better.
Yeah, I think I was on the show, I think, was it last week, saying he scored a beautiful scuffed goal.
Yeah.
There were no arguments about this one, was it?
Did you see that goal?
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it was...
You did, you talking.
You'd be surprised on this programme. It was... it reminded me a lot of Paul Gascoigne, Euro 96, but obviously without the celebration, so it wasn't...
There's also a very similar Ronaldinho goal.
Yeah,
where he
that's what it reminded me of. Big time,
Yeah.
really threw me back to that sort of Ronaldinho time where he would regularly flick it over defenders and stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
nice
just
to see
having
him doing
fun.
that, Neymar.
Yeah, but I mean, Neymar's been trying to have fun for a while, but sometimes I think when you score a goal and it's beautiful, that's good. But when you're far away from the goal and you're almost, juking someone, that's not the same.
Yeah. I think especially when he was in Brazil, I think he did a lot of that sort of stuff.
It's much more appreciated in Brazil.
Exactly. I think he might have toned it down a little bit for Barcelona, very similar to how Ronaldo did. Had to tone it back when he joined United. I think it's very similar to that.
Yeah. There's also something to be said for giving Neymar some time to acclimatise to La Liga, because moving from Brazil's a very different league, isn't it? Different pace, different appreciation of play, and in many ways he didn't play it safe, but he was basically asked to play a different role at Barcelona.
I think so. I think the key thing also is that they've managed to incubate the not playing with Rakitic as well, who seemed to be the guy pulling a lot of the strings.
Yeah.
And he wasn't there at the weekend. The other key thing for me is now on this show again, we've sort of said you can get at Barcelona and they can go goal behind, but now they've had 4 clean sheets in a row.
Yeah.
So it looks as though they've addressed any sort of mini problems that they had.
Yeah.
And they look seriously imperious. And Messi is not so distant memory, but he's...
Well, he'll be back. He'll be back, 2 weeks for Clasico?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I think where you'll see Barcelona actually struggle is towards the latter ends this season.
Why?
I think
How so?
Because they've actually got a light squad.
Small.
It's small, but they've got a lot of young players coming through. I think the toll of having injuries early doors won't show until later.
Have they not shown that, again, Rakitic not being in, Haddadi doing very well in place of Messi, that they can sustain probably the biggest injuries of all?
Yeah, well, I think they've, in the short term, but then if you ask Messi to come back and then he gets in, let's say he gets injured again, or Neymar gets injured, and the player feels he's blown all his steam out in the first 5 months of the season, I think he might struggle a little bit, but it remains to be seen, doesn't it?
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Especially with club doctors. It varies from club to club, but I think make a good point that if they burn out in the end of the season, then
because they're young lads. These are young lads coming through replacing them. They're not established players that they've been for Barcelona once. It's a lot of pressure on them to ask them to do a full season.
It's unusual in modern football to be able to play a front two, but it's almost like Barcelona are the only team that could play a front two right now and sort of go, yeah.
So what's he got, 11 goals this season now?
Something like that, but I think, like you said before, it's how he brings, Suarez especially, brings other players into the game. He's making life easier for some of the younger players. That you talk about Munir, I think he's making life easier for him. It's the same in midfield with Busquets. He makes a lot of other players look good.
But Busquets scored that sort of clinical pass with one of their
brilliant.
goals.
It's
It's absolutely
isn't it?
fantastic.
Yeah, you'd also imagine that having Neymar and Suarez up front also helps Barcelona stretch the play, which means that it does take some of the pressure off of the back, which is probably part of the reason that they don't go as deep now, if you like. They go a lot more direct because they've got this kind of free rolling front two. It takes a bit of the pressure off the back.
Do you think he's a genuine Ballon d'Or contender now?
Suarez?
Neymar?
No.
I think Suarez is more of a Ballon d'Or contender than Neymar.
How so?
In that, I think there's a lot of appreciation for his play. I think he is he's a player who seems maybe slightly more central to the play than Neymar, if that makes sense.
Do you think those front
and
two...
he's had a few more good years.
Do you think those front two have really been tested yet? Because you mentioned we've got El Clasico coming up in 2 weeks' time. They've rolled over Getafe, Las Palmas, The weekend, Villarreal, they're not what they were.
Played in the Champions League, granted against Bate Borisov.
Yeah, Bate Borisov, yeah, and that, again, I think the 4 clean sheets is where they looked a bit shaky. Even against the likes of Getafe early doors and things like that. They seem to have addressed that now, and the statistics look quite hard to beat at the back as well.
I miss Rakitic. Honestly,
he's brilliant.
I don't really
absolutely fabulous player.
Messi so much. I miss Rakitic because it's almost boring the way that Barcelona are with Messi. I'm not saying that makes Messi or Barcelona boring, but I want to see what Barcelona have got when they don't have a go-to.
Well, he wasn't there at the weekend. He was on the bench at the weekend.
But that's what I'm saying is I want to see when Rakitic comes back. I miss him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a brilliant footballer. But again, I think he's another player that Busquets makes look exceptional. Busquets does a lot of the
by doing his dirty work.
He did the same with Iniesta and Xavi. You see it again with Rakitic. I think you could put him in pretty much any team in the world, Busquets, and he'd do the exact same job.
Subject number 2: Jose Mourinho is still in a job. Name me another manager who could go through this period of
absolutely
results.
no one, because they've hired all the others.
But name me another manager.
No, there isn't any.
If there was another top manager who had results like this, it would literally be like, why is he still in the job?
I don't. It's like Chelsea's reputation precedes them. I think it's genuinely be heartening from the Chelsea fans who get a very bad rap for home support, things like that, for the support they've shown their manager. Again, he's obviously been given time. Maybe Chelsea
Can it not go both ways?
Pardon?
Can it not go both ways?
Absolutely. What do you mean in terms of his performances? They should respond with their performances.
Well, I'm just saying it has. There's been. This is the problem: is representing an entire fan base with fan channels or with Twitter talk. But I found it so weird that the only time that Chelsea fans felt a bit angry about what Mourinho was doing when it was representing them, and they said it went too far at one point. They didn't care when he was being sexist to Rafa Benitez's wife, but they cared when he was being sexist to someone else within the club. I think there's a double standard there.
I think you've described the double standard of every football supporter.
But that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying is that it's not just Chelsea. So Chelsea have somewhat of a unique position, but it's not just Chelsea fans.
Yes. And most importantly, Chelsea actually played very, very well. I think there's a couple of they were very, very unlucky. I mean, they showed signs of if they do stay on this course, some results will come. There are psychological barriers they need to get over.
I still think there are problems though.
Absolutely, yeah. But
Baba Rahman looked.
They had a lot of joy down the left, as did Liverpool. But the thing is, there were signs of life. For example, like Matic, for example, was starting to bring the ball forward and control the play again. Yeah. They could have had a number of goals. Hazard again is starting to look like a shade of his former self.
Yeah. So would you say though that's and I take your point. That's not good enough for a team that spent so much money on. They shouldn't be in this position in the first place, is what a lot of people.
It's far better than what they've produced in the last few weeks.
So what you're saying is the lesser of two evils. But what I'm still saying is Jose Mourinho is evil.
Well, I don't.
I'm still saying it's still not. It's still.
I don't believe in pure evil.
Yeah, well, I do. It's still. It's still not good enough.
No, it isn't there. No, absolutely not. There's not one Chelsea fan who would have gone away from Stoke saying, "I'm absolutely delighted with that wholesome, holistic."
No one goes to Stoke saying that.
Even just if you're.
I think they're still really missing that clinical edge, Chelsea. Do you see that Remy chance when he goes? He's got to go down there. A clinical Mourinho team. He goes down there.
Harry Kane and him putting Arsenal to the sword in a 1-1 draw.
I think it was a fantastic 1-1 draw from Tottenham's perspective. Was that Harry Kane's 5th goal in 3 Premier League?
It was a great game to watch, wasn't it? It was a really, really good game to watch, I thought.
When did you say that?
It was just a really open game. I know Premier League games, especially derbies, can often be very closed off and defensive because neither team wants to lose. But this was... I think Arsenal were very tired from Bayern Munich. Per Mertesacker especially, like he was blowing out his ass after 20 minutes.
I think it's a really interesting observation.
He actually did blow out his arse.
Because it was very open, but that's exactly how Arsenal didn't intend to set up. Because they set up trying to be quite cagey. They looked physically, mentally maybe shaken from the result at the week. Yeah, and I think, both goals, and this is where I totally agree with Joe, both goals, they were kind of defensive lapses. They both looked very vulnerable from set.
I still don't understand why are Arsenal still trying to play this high
offside
trap, and it's just not working at all for them.
But there was Gabriel in the week, and now was it Koscielny?
It was Koscielny coming up late. It's just all disorganised.
It was also very interesting that Pep Guardiola was so open about the way that he was going to beat Arsenal, which was just put pressure on the back two, and they can't play. Yeah. And it's as if Pochettino went. But the point is that people know if you pressure their back line, then they can't play out, and they try to play out, and if they end up clearing the ball, then it gets rid of what they need to be able to play their game.
But Spurs, their top 3 or 4 look so much better and fluid than Arsenal.
Also their wingers.
Pardon?
I mean, Lamela looked fantastic.
Lamela looks
they're
great,
two
isn't
wing
it?
backs. Walker, fantastic, showing his pace, showing why he can.
It was Walker's best game in a long time because for the last few months he's been off the boil.
I think he's going to go to the England squad, and I think he'll start. Do you think he'll start ahead of Klein? Or do you think
I think Klein's been great for Liverpool as well.
It has been good for Liverpool, but do you think they'll give Walker the chance, or do you think they'll experiment with it? Because those two are they're not similar players, but I personally trust Klein more than I trust Walker.
Yeah, so do I. Walker's big hit and miss player.
Can I say Klein
Johnson
individually, Carl Walker collectively? So I think I'm talking about the Liverpool. Him individually in the Liverpool back line. I don't. The collective Liverpool back line, I trust less than Tottenham's collective back line.
Yes.
But I trust Klein more individually.
Put Klein in Tottenham's back line, and maybe you've got the dream team.
Can I also say, everyone's saying now I can see Pochettino's going in the right direction. I also think there's some things that's fallen in his lap that previous managers have done. For example, there's some players Villas-Boas bought that are now only 2 years later are coming good. And also,
I don't know if
and Sherwood as well giving
them good.
I wouldn't say he's fallen into his lap.
Yeah,
I'd say that it's the same as the transition between Rodgers and Klopp. That there's a manager there who's clearly knows what he wants to do, but actually doesn't have the tools to execute it. So you've got Andre Villas-Boas who didn't have long enough to execute. You've got Tim Sherwood who didn't have the tools to execute, and now you've got someone who's got a bit of both.
Okay. But yeah, it is the culmination, the precipitation of a lot of good work that previous managers have done.
I think we're doing Pochettino a bit of a disservice. I think he did the same at Southampton. He bought through. I know, like you say, Sherwood's bought through a lot of youngsters, and there was some players potentially that have improved under him. But he did the same. He's bought through a host of young players. Dele Alli, he's improved sevenfold. He's moved Dyer into midfield. Looks much stronger. Dembele looks a different player on the weekend. Completely different player. He did the same at Lamela. Did the same at Southampton. So I think we're doing a bit of disservice.
And Alderweireld.
I think,
and Laurence actually looks a good. Laurence looks different.
It looks like the culmination of a lot of players finally gelling and coming together. I think that's what you could agree on.
And then with Arsenal, there's obviously a lot of injuries.
I think as a team, they inherently like to hold on to the ball a lot. In the Premier League, that puts you under pressure immediately. You see it a lot with Jack Wilshere. Maybe he takes a second longer. You put that in La Liga, he gets the ball off, nothing comes in. You put it in the Premier League, he's in, and there's a tackle on him.
The intensity.
I think you can say the same with Santi Cazorla sometimes. Sometimes he gets nicked from behind. I think that's part of the reason is that their intensity is maybe still a second too slow for the Premier League game. I think.
Unusual to take Santi off at half time and bring Flamini on.
Again, he said, did you see what he said? He said he was dizzy and couldn't continue. So to me, that says that he's not fit enough for Premier League level.
Jurgen Klopp suffered his first defeat on the weekend to a similar manager. In many ways, a motivator, someone
his
who's
real footballing soulmate.
Yeah, someone else who's someone else who's won Bundesliga. Yeah, so it just doesn't work. 2-1 to Crystal Palace, Liverpool's bogey team.
I think Liverpool, you saw that against Chelsea game as well, starting games very, very slowly. I thought both of the goals, Liverpool were quite slow to react. I think the problem was...
Liverpool made their own problems.
I think with Lucas as captain, the lack of leadership, I think, at the back caused both goals.
Interesting.
For example... love watching Crystal Palace away from home. They're athletic and powerful. They come forward they come forward as a unit. You know, Balassi, Sahar, etc., etc., etc. I just think again, like in the Chelsea game, Liverpool were slow to start, trying to feel their way into the game, which you can't do week in, week out. Do it against Chelsea at the moment, sure, but you can't do it. I don't think a great away team like Crystal Palace won 11 in 16 away from home. So, and both goals they were taken pretty much within Liverpool's penalty area. And I think there's too much reliance on Coutinho as well to wait for a bit of magic to revive the team.
That's interesting.
They were again very sort of spookily similar time scored against the Chelsea game. Wait to bail them out at about half time. Go in as a revitalised team, and then it falls. It's almost like the Anfield is sort of waiting for Coutinho to get the ball because he'll sort of do something. Because I don't think there's a lot of leaders from the back in that Liverpool team, and I think that was the problem.
Interesting you say that. I think there's definitely criticism or places that I'd imagine Jurgen Klopp would say Liverpool want to improve. I think it was Jordan Ibe. It was an interesting play in this game. You'd say maybe he's playing him because they don't feel they have many options.
He's not been bad though, Jordan Ibe.
He's not been terrible, but I think
some of his combination play with Nathaniel Klein on that right is
fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Klein going outside him. And
Benteke spurned a lot of chances in this game.
Yeah,
there was that header, wasn't it? I mean,
there was,
you could say
there were
actually
three headers, but even then you'd say, well, you're a striker, bury it.
Yeah.
And there are other chances that are dragged wide. I'm not quite sure I agree with what you're saying about Coutinho, but it's along the right lines.
I personally think Klopp got it slightly wrong on the weekend. I'm
how
not
so?
sure when he.
What would you have done?
I wouldn't have taken Chan off for Firmino. I think that leaves you exposed in the Premier League. Maybe you can do it in the Bundesliga, where teams aren't quite up to pace 90 minutes full attack like they are in the Premier League. But I think you expose with just Lucas in there. That's big exposure. You take Chan out of the midfield. I know he's not the most mobile of men to start with. I don't think so.
Interesting. Okay.
He's the times I've watched him in the flesh, he seems big body weight.
Really?
Really, yeah, genuinely. He seems a lot bigger in the flesh than he does on the telly. On
He's
the
a
telly,
big-
you think
he's
he's
a big
up and
stature.
down, but he's a big boy. So for Klopp to ask him to get forward, back, press, high up the pitch, I think it's a lot to ask. That's why he's being taken off at 60 minutes and half time sometimes.
I think they asked Firmino to drop back because they realised that essentially what Crystal Palace were doing was dropping back and trying counter-attacks. So Chan's play was
That's what
less...
Palace do all the time away from home.
But it was
not a
less...
secret.
No, but as the game went on, it became even more obvious than Liverpool's dominance of the game. And I think, therefore, they asked Firmino to start a little bit deeper and push Coutinho slightly out to the left. Moyes has finally got his life back. We
had the sense of relief in the office.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Get your...
Do you think he got the wrong flight to Sociedad?
Yeah, I think he did, yeah. Donde your life? I think it would have been although everyone in retrospect is always going to give him... you want to give him support, but at the same time you go, David, just take a little bit of time off.
You think so, yeah. I think he finished 12th last season. It's not too bad. It's not too good. And he was 16th when he got sacked. I think the key thing, what they've obviously done is they've seen they've gone only above the relegation zone on goal difference, and they've made a decision before. I think they got Barcelona in 2 games' time, and they've lost to Las Palmas, which are a direct sort of relegation rival, and they've taken action, haven't they?
In a 6
They clearly had Eusebio lined up a while ago because he's in. So
there's a lot
spookily quick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who sort of hang around Spanish clubs like that. Do you know?
Yeah.
In a Kenny Dalglish-esque sort of.
But I actually think it was the right move to move on quickly from United. I think if he'd have taken a year off, I think people would have just driven home the point of failure at Man United.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was a risk worth taking for him. He needed to get. He was never going to join another English club straight away. It wouldn't have worked for him because the hoodoo would have just hung over him from United. So he had to go abroad. Might not have been that many options for him, and I'm not sure it worked out in the end. But I think it was a risk worth taking if David Moyes.
See, I think
It
there's
didn't
other
work out though.
options.
The risk didn't work out
No,
because this was supposed to
of course.
rebuild his reputation.
I imagine Moyes learned something while he was at Sociedad.
Definitely.
But is La Liga the right place?
I'm
Or
not
will
sure.
he bring something?
Retrospectively, it's very easy to say, isn't it? When you look back on it, this is the wrong move for him. Maybe he should have gone to a slightly smaller league. Maybe he's looked at something like the Dutch league or Pardew-esque, gone somewhere else. But I think for him personally, he was very keen to, you know what, that's done. Let's crack on now. I think that's the type of man he is. He's
So you admire that about
driven.
him?
I definitely admire it.
Yeah.
It would have been the easier option, quite frankly, to sit back and go, I'm going to take some time out and reconsider. The harder option was to go, you know what, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to get back into the game, give it
But
another go.
after making a decision,
Not very clever, in
I get what you're saying, and I think
hard to
that
be
it is
clever.
admirable about how headstrong he's been. However, by making a quick decision means you have fewer options, and by doing that, which isn't possibly hasn't turned out to be the right job, where does he go from here? Because he hasn't rebuilt his reputation.
I think he takes a break, and I think he...
Now's the time to take a break.
Yeah,
You've given it your best shot.
Yeah, but then...
We're taking your passport, David?
See, yeah. Well, no,
We're
he's
taking
he's
your
booked on
the rest of-
holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, of course.
Don't depress him by keeping him
Yeah,
in
but you
Britain.
don't want to send him on a 2-week package tour and you realise he's managing the local team and he hasn't had any days
He's
off.
realised he's managing the Cruise football team. I think it would have been... I mean, I think it was a mistake in the first place. I obviously would always offer my support to David Moyes. I think he's a good manager. You'd always say, oh, he can do a job here.
Yeah.
So Billy McKinley's role you would do directly.
In many ways, yeah. But I think now take the time...
I think wait for a job now.
But what sort of job now is
do you know-
it?
I think you go behind the scenes somewhere. I think you
Really?
go talk to other managers. You go talk because other managers, it's a fraternity. Other managers will talk to other managers. If you want to go and talk to Pep Guardiola at Bayern, I'd imagine he's more than open to it because you're of a certain level. You've got these badges, and he's clearly a good manager.
Yeah.
And let us know in the comments below what you think about David Moyes. We're all very sad to see him go. See you again soon.